Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Creative Exploration series. This time we're interviewing Bo from BoBeats. He is a YouTuber that has been around for a very long time. I believe I found your channel through Jeremy's, his inspirations, his recommended channels, and I've really followed you very closely since then. It's been a really cool channel to watch.
Yeah, thanks, and thanks for having me on. After a little bit of technical difficulty, I'm still amazed that we can have these talks, across the wide ocean. But of course, it comes with a little bit of technical difficulties sometimes.
Yeah. You're in Sweden, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And I'm at home currently. So if anybody hears somebody screaming in the background, it's just my children. Nothing to be worried about. The missus, she has a handle on things. So we're actually, everybody is sick, including myself a little bit. So yeah. But I didn't want to miss out on the chance to have a little creative talk.
Yeah. I think that even though you're like 7 hours away, I think that's going around because I haven't been feeling that great either. But yeah, no, I'm super glad we were finally able to make this happen and just kind of get together and talk for a little bit because I'm actually really interested in some of your opinions on things because I learned that you have some background in psychology and some other stuff. And I really like that you're the way that you focus your channel is not only just talking about music, but talking about the reasoning and the feelings and like how the brain reacts around music as well. And I think that's super cool.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear it. And it's definitely a direction I want to explore more in the future. The more time I've had for the channel, and the less time I've spent at my other workplaces, I've had this feeling that I want to put more of the psychology and educational background that I have into the channel, because of course, if you're working with psychology every day and you're working with teaching every day, sometimes it's a little bit hard to find the inspiration to go and do it on YouTube, but I've definitely felt a larger and larger drive to take that knowledge and that perspective and then put it on YouTube. Definitely.
Yeah. I guess we should start by asking who you are and where we can find your channel. We've been talking about your YouTube channel for the last 3 minutes.
So I'm over at youtube.com/BoBeatsMusic, and you can find me under BoBeats on Instagram and BoBeats Music on Twitter and BoBeats Music on Facebook as well. And I make videos about synths and music production, and I tend to say creativity as well. But I guess it's a lot aimed towards sort of the psychology behind being a creative, behind being a hobbyist, behind making music, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and you talk a lot about hardware as well, which it's absolutely fascinating to me. I've mostly worked with software like Ableton and FL Studio and just patches and VSTs from there, and I've always been really interested in getting into hardware. But even like you've mentioned in your videos, it is not a cheap hobby. And
but for sure.
It seems like you have so much more flexibility with that kind of hardware where you can just turn a knob and stuff happens rather than twitch your mouse around and use a keyboard.
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't say flexibility perhaps, but I would say at least it's a human connection. And that's my perspective on it. It's like you form an attachment to something. It's an instrument. You can express yourself through the instrument. And I think for a lot of people, especially nowadays that we have smartphones and computers everywhere, I think that a lot of people want to go back to expressing themselves through the hardware. Instead of just relying on a mouse and keyboard or a controller. And it's just a different way of interfacing really with the tools and a slightly different way to create music. And I do have a lot of viewers that are my age and above, like between 30 and 50, and they've gotten back to music, and they're tired of computers, and they want to tweak something. They want that hardware feel.
Yeah, yeah, and just the physicality of it. It just feels more permanent than loading some software and just, turning virtual knobs. I can
I think
really
like
resonate with that.
Yeah, like you have the occasional firmware updates, but beyond that, you don't really have that much to fiddle with in terms of setup. I mean, I think I have down here on my Mac at the moment, I think I have like, I don't know, like there's 5 or 6 different update programs, those software centers that where you go when you, let's update my native instruments, let's update my artillery. And to be very honest, and this is really a first world problem.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But I'm like, I don't enjoy it. And that's an aspect of software that I just don't enjoy.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And the portability of hardware. Do you travel a lot with yours? Do you go to like weird locations and just kind of jam out sometimes?
You mean if I go outside and I do the Euro-rack in sunsets with a little bit of rainforest going on? No, not that much.
Yeah.
No, I do. I do a bit of traveling. To be honest, of course, during the summers we take the family down to a cabin.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm just checking
okay.
here if somebody came into the studio, but somebody didn't. I was just kind of, what? Did my child just enter the studio? But I think she's upset about something, probably very not synth related. But she did say the other day or today when I got a new synth here, and she said like, "Oh, Dad, you got a new synth." She's 4 years old, and I'm like, "Yeah," and she's like, "Yeah, that's cool."
You gonna start them early?
Yeah, I gotta start them early. But so we're talking about traveling. So I do go to a cabin in the summers, just a little very simple cabin on the east coast of Sweden. And when I go there, I usually bring a few bits and pieces, the Digitact or the circuit or something, just something to explore. And it's been fun. Yeah, so last time I went to the cabin, I took the Roland SCO2 with me, the little small boutique synth, and it's just good fun having something with me and sort of spending some quality time with the gear.
So when you do travel like that, do you find that you get a lot of different inspiration just from the different environments? I've heard from some people that they do and some people that they don't, and it's always interesting to kind of see where a different environment might take you.
Yeah, definitely. I think a very early video I did for the channel was actually me talking about this and how you sort of get these different impulses from different places. You get sort of these creative triggers from different surroundings. And I think it's also very much just a change in routine, perhaps, that makes a lot of difference.
Yeah, actually, that makes a lot of sense.
We just got a little friend here who's sitting in my lap, my little son. He came in here. He's 6 months old, so, his mommy said, you gotta hold him for a little while. So we'll see. He's probably going to be happy just hanging out with us.
That's okay. I saw that he was featured in a recent video as well. One of your unboxings. He helped you out with that, didn't he? yeah.
He helped me out a lot. He loves the wrapping papers and stuff, and to play with the boxes and everything. So that's good fun. Yeah, but definitely just a change in. So we're talking about how changing how the environment can affect us creatively, and I definitely notice for myself that just this change in environment changes my routines fundamentally, and this will of course impact very heavily what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. And I think to me that has been somewhat important, at least just taking the time during the summers to do things a little bit differently. And maybe I don't have everything with me all the time either. I'm not in my studio, I don't have access to everything, so just that change in routine is very important, I think, for me.
Yeah, yeah, and you've done a studio tour before, and I was really impressed by like all the setup that you have. I like the table that you had that had the mount for the camera to just face down, so you can do everything like that. It's like, it seems like such a simple thing, but that really ups the quality of the videos, just having that stable mounted camera on there, so you can just do whatever you want without getting a tripod in the way and all that other stuff. Like,
yeah, that has been really something that I've developed over time, since I'm not really a video guy from the start. When I started my YouTube, I didn't know anything about cameras really. I've taken a few photos with my smartphone and stuff like that, but I'd never worked with video or anything. So basically what you're seeing on the channel now is like, it's not even three years of really trying. It's like, yeah, I mean, it's very, I've tried to learn as much as possible during these like 3 years. But I started out with very limited knowledge. I didn't know what ISO was or aperture or whatever. I had no clue. So it's been really nice developing the video aspect of the studio as well. It's still not like I spend more money on the video side. I still spend more money on the music side. So I'm not in the camp of YouTubers that buy a camera for like $50,000 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not there yet.
Yeah, but your most recent video was, I felt like it was really professionally shot. You were talking about creating pads and stuff, and you had like all this B-roll that you cut to, and you had all these like nice transitions between what you're doing and what you're like doing on the piano and the knobs you're turning. It's like I felt that it was really well put together.
Thank you. Yeah. I've definitely, of course, had a lot of inspiration from like Jeremy, for example, his recording that I know you had on your creative podcast as well.
Yeah.
And Noir at Blank V, he has some exquisite videos. Just the quality of the production is so high.
Yeah.
And and Andrew Wong, of course, is also very big source of inspiration when it comes to kind of the general quality of the video production. But then, of course, I try and not get too influenced by the content itself, because it's, you don't want to go and copy people straight off, or it's always a risk. I don't know if you agree with this, but I feel that it's a risk when I spend a lot of time looking at other people's content.
Yeah.
Because it's sort of like influencing my ideas. So somebody's style, that's one thing, you can take bits and pieces of, but it's like, should I also do a video about this or something? I try and stop myself and focus on sort of my own ideas.
No, I absolutely agree with that. I have a fairly short, I have a couple videos about Pocket Operator, just jam sessions, and they were definitely inspired by Jeremy's OP1 videos, where it's mostly just kind of the music and a lot of just text and other stuff pops up on screen, just all that stuff. And then I'm like, these are a lot like Red Meat's recording. Maybe I should kind of like work on my own style for those.
Yeah. We actually, me and Jeremy and some other guys, we were talking the other day on Twitter, and we saw that Novation had made, they'd made like a synth video or something. I don't know if it was it could have been with the Launchpad maybe or something. But Jeremy was just kind of telling me like, oh, this is like super, it's like super similar to a lot of us. It's like they've taken different pieces of what we're doing and sort of splicing it together, because there was the coffee jokes, and there was Jeremy style texts, and I don't know, but it was so funny to see. It was really like a merge, or merging together of the different styles that we represent. So
I wonder if you could get in touch with Novation and ask where their inspiration came from for that video.
It was a good video for sure. It's a good video, but I often, I've definitely made the case before that there's still, I think we're really seeing a sort of emerging music production, and especially synthesizer YouTube scene. Of course, people have been doing it for a long time. Like Cuckoo has been on the platform for a long time.
Yeah.
And Andrew Wong. But I think in the synthesizer community that I'm a big part of, like a little bit more hardcore into the hardware stuff, it's fairly new. So when I was starting out, I think besides like Cuckoo, there wasn't really that many people that were recognized because of their face. So people were mostly like recognized by name or by style of video, perhaps, or for making good demos. But there weren't really that many personalities. And I do think that this is something that has become much more, it's a much more common occurrence today. Which I think is kind of fun, because I much more enjoy following a person that I know is a real person with feelings and aspirations than following maybe well-produced videos, no doubt, but still like following a company. Like, and there's like I'm trying to remember. Knobs, the channel, the YouTube channel Knobs, where it's not necessarily a person, but there's definitely a personality behind whoever's exactly.
putting
Like
the video together.
If you follow Knobs, you grow accustomed to Knobs' style, which is very beautiful, very clean, very pristine. It's a very beautiful and aesthetic way of doing things.
Definitely.
And I know Knobs is doing some work for, I think it's Moog Audio. So it's not Moog, it's the store, I think. It's an American store, if I'm not mistaken. And he's doing some videos for them, which are in a similar style to his own. But when I watched them, so no shade on him, he does some really good stuff.
Oh yeah.
But when I watch his Moog Audio videos, obviously it's not the same thing as watching his channel. So I really love that we have all of these different, personalities and ways of expressing ourselves, and that people have today, at least I feel in the synth community, people have more to choose from, more interesting people. I guess like what I'm saying is, because you kind of started asking about like I have the more like human or psychological side to it. I guess my point is, even though I talk a lot about gear, I also talk a lot about who I am and my perspectives, because I want to give people something to bounce off, and not just like a pure technical demo, which I think is still much more prevalent in our scene.
And I think that and I'd like to hear your opinion on this, but I think that it's almost more important, especially on something like YouTube, and just as like a music producer in general, to be a personality, to kind of grow a following that way. You can't just be releasing music and not like interacting with the community anymore. You have to be the type of person that's open and willing to work with other people.
Yeah, sure. I think you're definitely onto something there. I think in general, when it comes to making music and releasing the music, I see a lot of people in my surrounding that doesn't spend the time to establish a sort of context for their music. And what I mean by context could be technical in the sense that you have a label and, a label that promotes you and stuff like that, of course. But that's not for everybody. It's kind of hard. And even if you get a label, most labels won't really put in a big effort to push your stuff anyway. So I would say that a lot of people I meet doesn't put in the necessary time and energy into developing a social context. And this could be through being personal on Instagram or being personal on YouTube or whatever. Just I think Rachel K. Collier, she's on YouTube, and I think she does this really well. So she's obviously very talented. I met her actually in London when I was there for an Novation event, and such a lovely person, a lot of energy, and the music she makes is really good. However, I think in large part, a lot of the success comes from also making very interesting content on social media. She does like music jams, hardware, kind of not hardware synth jams, but she uses a few hardware synths, but it's like Ableton performances. And she sings and she loops stuff live, and the music is great, but it's the combination between, her personality coming through, the sort of, you get to see her process, and you get to hear the music. Yeah, I just think that's brilliant. And so I guess, long story short, I think people should work on that, finding what's your personal angle, whatever it is.
Yeah. And I think that creating a personality, not necessarily like a fake personality, but just putting your own personal,
Yeah, I think we could, I like to demystify things. I think we can all agree that if you want to be an artist, you have to develop a persona. There's no, people can debate me on this if they want to, but my firm belief is that there's no genuine people, like they're 100% just themselves when they're being an artist. I think being an artist has a lot to do with letting ourselves be artists, and that's something else than being Bo the dad. Like that's something different. It's a different role.
Yeah.
So I have to, in order to maintain this, I do have to some extent develop a bit of a persona. Then of course, there needs to be I think the English word is congruence.
Yeah.
Congruence.
Yeah.
So things, you can't go around and pretending you're something or someone you're not for a very long time, because that will hurt you psychologically. But I think this might be something people sometimes overlook, that there's a difference between being Bo the producer, Bo the YouTube influencer, or Bo dad. Like there's a bit of difference there.
Yeah,
obviously.
It's being kind of honest with yourself, I think, where you're just making sure that whatever kind of persona that you're putting out into the world is still something you're okay with.
For sure. I mean, I would never advocate anybody to be dishonest or to do things they don't believe in. But I think for a lot of people, in order to do the things they believe in, they also need a little bit of a protective shell.
Yeah.
A lot of artists talks about this, the need to create this sort of a bit of a barrier between your ego, your personal personalities and the public personality. And I think we do it a lot through, when I'm on YouTube, I sip the coffee, I do things in a certain way because that's BoBeats in my videos. Now, I'm pretty similar in real life. But of course, it becomes a thing because there's also the public demand. So, Bo, why didn't you sip the coffee today? And I'm like, okay, yeah, of course, I need to sip the coffee because I'm BoBeats. So it becomes sort of circular there. With the feedback from and I think that's just a part of being a public figure. You have to some extent accept this. You can't be 100% yourself every single day and still be an artist and make that work. I think it's too. I'm not sure if it's healthy.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
You see, even if in today's day and age is very. I think this is a takeaway that I've had from watching a lot of YouTube. So we have all the vloggers, we have all the social media personalities, and the people that you think are the most real. And you say, oh, I really get to see, like Casey Neistat, for example, who seems very genuine and real. But it's very obvious. Oh, no, he said, hello. He said, Papa. He said, Papa, here in the background. It's very obvious that Casey Neistat is deliberately not showing us everything.
Yeah.
And he even says it in some videos. For example, he doesn't show us the rough side of being married to Casey Neistat. He doesn't, when he talks about being productive, he does it out of he has a very, he wants to have a very positive and strong message, which I can understand. It's also a very American way of putting things, be all you can be, do all you can do, and that sort of stuff.
Exactly.
But we are not seeing the full picture. We're not seeing how the divorce might hang over him at certain points in his life. He jokes about it, but it's not something we really get to see. It's actually creeping more into his videos, more like this year. But before that, it was very much focused on the kind of, how do you say, like the not the positives, but like a positive message.
Yeah. And I mean, I can agree with that to a point, but I feel like as a content creator, you have to show all sides of being a creator. And that's one of the things that I really love about streaming, because when you're streaming music production, sometimes you might have an off day, or sometimes you just can't figure something out, and that can get frustrating. And I think that it's valuable to show that not only, making things is great, making things is amazing, but sometimes it's very hard. And I feel that it's important to show people that, because
I totally agree.
Yeah.
And I think, this is a very excellent point. Of course, it depends on what you want to do as a creator, and what your messaging is. But since I'd like to be a guy on YouTube who fiddles around with synths and makes some music and who has a normal sort of everyday life and children. And I don't want to portray myself as something I'm not. I don't want to portray myself as some successful artist, even though, I've made some money from my music in the past. I don't really want to emphasize that on my channel. I want, and this is something I sometimes get, and not hate, but critique from. It's like, oh, the demos wasn't good. This music's pretty shit. You have a $1,600 synth and the music wasn't all that great. And it's like, yeah, but I don't want to show you guys great music. Like, that's not the aim. The aim is to show you how something works, how it could be helpful, sort of what it sounds like without being super polished. Because I do feel like some people, I have a really good example. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus here, but just I want to tell your audience, and if there's any of my audience listening, that when you listen to people's demos of products, be very mindful of how processed is this. Is this the pure sound of a synth, or is this a synth with great with a lot of effects on it? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So I just because it's like, or okay, so this is a guy who can create some awesome music, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you can, just because you're sort of buying the same pieces of equipment. And I do want that honesty to come across. Like, I don't want to sit there like some, I could put in the hours. I could make every demo sound like a track ready to be released, but that's not the audience, and not the sort of messaging I want to do. And I totally get why people who are artists and who want to release their music and wants to focus on their music, why they focus on making demos that sound really good. But I think as an audience, an audience has to look at this and be a little bit critical and say, okay, what's actually being shown? Is it a finished product, or is it more like how a product works? Okay, my boy he's falling asleep here. So now for the listeners, you're getting the BoBeats making his son fall asleep. His son.
The full experience.
The full experience. You can put this in surround, and we get like BoBeats' son. His name is Vide, which means willow in English. Oh,
so very nice.
Yeah, but I think he's falling asleep now. So
okay, yeah. Where I was going from there, I was actually going to ask you like how long you took on your videos. Like I like the idea that you said where you wanted to show what these devices can do when you're just tinkering around, when you don't have, you know, your DAW hooked up and a bunch of effects in there. And it's like, you know, if I just want to sit down for 20 minutes and make something, this is kind of what you would hear, rather than, and I love the way that Jeremy does it too with his OP1 videos, where he spends, you know, 2 hours making the song, and then he's like, okay, I did the rest of this in Ableton. Here's the final track.
Exactly. So you get a little bit before and after.
Exactly. It still shows the process, but it's not like, well, it came out of my head this way. Like that's how it was. It came out, you know, super processed and finished.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I tend to not spend too long time with the musical demos, just because you know, when I have a family life, and obviously and I have you know, other things I have to do. So when I have time to record, I just fire it up, turn on the cameras, and then whatever happens.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's, you know, the music is really good. Sometimes I prep stuff, you know, with loops and stuff like that. But yeah, other times it's whatever. But since I'm explaining as well as making music on the go, it's sort of hard for me to, you know, make sure that one thing is great while the other is great too. It's often a draw. Like if the music is great, then I probably haven't been explaining that much. And if the explaining is great, then probably the music is getting a little bit secondhand.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that kind of goes back to my whole point with streaming, where it's just like, you know, sometimes somebody asks a question, you get kind of derailed, and then the quality of the music goes down, but then the quality of the actual, like, the content and the educational parts go up. And, you know, I think that it's really valuable to have a balance of both of those.
Yeah. And I've also found that there's a big interest in just hearing other people's opinions and thoughts.
Yeah.
Even in something as technical as the synth scene, where it's very much the gear in focus. When I started doing live streams, I was, you know, stressing myself out. You know, I should be making music on stream because others are, and you know, it's a music channel. And nowadays, I just realized, you know, if I pop on YouTube Live and I start streaming, and I have like 150 people, and they're just there to hang out and drink some coffee and listen to me and ask some questions and have a good conversation. It's actually been one of, I don't do it often enough. I'd love to do it more. It's just been very hard to figure it out in terms of schedule. But it's been one of the most fun experiences this year, just being able and sort of accepting that I don't have to be very creative to entertain people. Yeah. I can be entertaining by just answering questions, giving my perspective. Like last time, I think I had 100 people listening on my hair advice.
Wow.
It was just that. No, but it's just so like a segue or like a parenthesis, like a little side thing. But it was very funny. Yeah. Like just hanging out, and then some people started to joke about my hair and sort of asking questions about it. And I was like, yeah, why not? You know, let's go down that route. It's cool. You know, it's the unexpected parts.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to just being a personality online. Like people just want to spend time with that personality because they've watched so many videos that they have the opportunity to actually converse with you and spend time with you. And it's not necessarily about the music, it's about the person. And I think that's why it's so important to do that kind of stuff once in a while, just because people are always interested in getting a different view of how things kind of come together.
Yeah, I mean, sure, if you make great music and you just promote it in a nice way, of course people will be interested in just the music. But I do think that for a lot of people starting out today, I think it's very important to not forget about having an active social media and trying to create a little bit of a following there. People who are interested in what you're doing, and it doesn't have to be much. I remember the last few videos I made now with Analog 4 and Analog Rhythm, they're basically like 50% jams, 50% music, and then I'm just doing a little bit of a discussion at the end. And I thought that was kind of a nice format, and I think a lot of other people could probably do stuff like that, just kind of playing some music and then taking us through the setup, or giving their perspective on some topic. I think that's an interesting way to engage with people. But I totally get it's not for everybody. Not everybody has the aim to or the goal to be sort of a social media personality either. So it's kind of you have to sort of find the balance there. But I guess like just going to like my brother, he's in a rock and pop band, 60s style music, they're very talented. And when I look at that sort of community of people and the people who go and listen to those bands, of course, you can't forget that it's a lot about personality. All the rock bands, of course, putting on a good show, part of putting on a good show is about expressing your personality in a certain way. And whether it's extreme, like with Kiss, for example, in the makeup and stuff, and you're really putting on a mask, literally, or it's more subtle. But of course, developing that artist personality is important, I think.
Yeah, and I also feel that developing that just takes time. It's not something that you sit down and write out. It's something that you kind of grow into as you evolve as an artist as well.
We have a good example here in Sweden, a band named Kent, which is sort of indie. I don't know maybe I'm shooting myself in the foot here, but indie pop or something. I don't know. When I was younger, they were very popular. I guess they're still popular, but not viewed as indie because they're very established now. But when I was younger, they were sort of getting more and more famous, and these were, I don't remember how old they were then, but 35 plus, up in their 40s. And I remember from one of the documentaries about them, they'd been doing music together for a very long time, and I guess suddenly they found not just the audience, but they found a way to express themselves, or they found that kind of personality that worked for them and worked for the audience at that time. And it took 15 years or something that.
Yeah. I think, I mean, anybody that's expecting to get rich quick these days, being an artist of all things, it's, you're going to be pretty disappointed in how things go. Definitely. I think that it's valuable to treat art as a hobby and then just kind of grow into it as a business, such as it is. That doesn't necessarily mean that you need to, bring out insurance and all that other stuff. It's just trying to start with what makes you happy, and then, growing toward, making money and creating a sustainable kind of business off of that.
Yeah, but haven't you heard, making money? That's don't go be a sellout now, Ben. Nobody should make any money. Yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
We make $1, then
that's start making money. Then it's. But I'd love to throw away some dollars at Black Friday. No problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's funny. It's always interesting, and I guess that's a part of it too. Getting to a point where you can start earning a little bit of a income from what you love doing. And I also think that's another role that people have to develop over time, especially as artists and creatives, because it's not, my experience is that it's not something that comes naturally to a lot of us in the creative scene. How do you actually run a little small business? How does that really work? You're somebody wants me to promote this. Oh, that sounds fun. And it's I'm so thankful. And then it's maybe I should ask for some payment. Yeah. And it's very, but it's also a role to grow into, which I think, especially in the music scene, especially in certain communities of the music scene, there's also a little bit of a pushback from listeners or from other creatives against making money. It's sort of a culture, anti-sellout culture, which is also a little bit problematic, I'd say, because it's like, to me, it's not that you can't question it. Of course, you can always question stuff, but to me, it's more like, I mean, in the world we're living in now, is questioning other artists, is that really where I want to put my energy? If I want to change something, if I want to make a positive impact, like this dude who doesn't even make, the same money that he or she would just doing another job, and pouring her heart into it.
Yeah.
Is this my societal critique? Like, to me, that's just like, I don't know. To me, it seems like it stems a lot more from jealousy or, I guess jealousy would sort of sum up my perspective on it. That it's a lot of unconscious jealousy between different creators.
Yeah, where it's like, this artist got noticed, and they're paying this artist to talk about something. And, I can totally see that there might be some jealousy involved there, rather than just being like, oh, well, you're selling out, you're making money off of what you love. It's more, well, this person got noticed, why didn't I? So I'm going to give them crap on the internet and leave YouTube comments.
Yeah, I think it could be at least a part of it, I guess. But so, yeah, that's another role we have to work on, being business minded and trying to make a little bit of a living. I actually have a good rule that people could try if they want to. This is something I developed with my father. He's a writer, a journalist, a poet, and he said something along the lines of, think about a sum that you want to do something, like an amount of money, and then you double it, like a general rule. Because the sort of premise is that creatives will always ask for too little money to do the work.
Yeah, that's true. I've definitely run into that issue before.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, we've talked for like 45 minutes, and we've gone through one of the questions that I had on my list.
Oh, okay, okay.
Let's see. Are
there any short ones?
And that's totally fine. Like I love these conversations because they are conversations. Like they're not. I call it an interview, but primarily it's mostly just. Oh, you got somebody talking in the background?
No, it's me.
Okay.
I just sat down with the baby.
Oh,
yeah,
gotcha.
I totally agree. Like it's more interview in podcast format.
Yeah, and I like that these kind of go on conversations that just go off of weird directions, and I really like that. So I guess one of the ones that I'd like to ask is, especially as a father and a family man, like what is your day-to-day process kind of like? Like, how do you allocate time for everything?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay.
It's a work in progress, I guess. So the way I approach it is something like this. I sit down basically every evening and I look at the next day and I say, okay, what do I want to achieve tomorrow? And what are, the needs of the family? Who's picking up from preschool? Who's, doing dinners and stuff? And or is my wife going away somewhere? And, we try and figure it out on a sort of day-to-day and weekly basis. And some days I have to go to the university and teach and lecture, so I'll do that, obviously. And other days I'm at home doing the BoBeats project. So those days I try and, be helpful with the family, make sure everybody gets to where they're supposed to be in the morning. And then, now my wife is at home with her little toddler. He's 6 months old, or 7 months almost, I think. So then I say, okay, now I'm going up and work. And then I go up and I close the door. That's a very important step, closing the door.
Yeah.
And then I try and work, and she's very helpful and makes dinner for us, or lunch. And and then I work for a few hours after lunch as well. And then I go and get my daughter. Some days, I take the afternoon off with her, and I'd say most days I don't, and most days I keep working until like 5 or 6 or something. And then I have some family time, and then I keep working, I guess, maybe for an hour or two every evening as well.
Well, it seems like it's good to have that kind of strong split between creative time and family time and everything else. Just making sure that you do have time for everything.
It's been something that I've really had to work on, because obviously having 2 children during my YouTube start and the growth of the channel and doing more and more work has of course been difficult at some points. So yeah, it's definitely been something that I've been developing. I guess a stronger sense of work ethic. Like, okay, now I'm going to work. Now I'm not working. I'm still struggling though to be totally honest and talk about both sides. Like I check my phone too much. I check my emails way too much. And I've started, really started to be more conscious about it, because at first it was fun. And then it became sort of a compulsion.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like an OCD with my phone and other things. And now I've actually started using more organizational applications. I use Trello, Trello. It's an app
like
for I use it for videos and scheduling stuff, and it works really nicely, and it sort of lets me take stuff off my mind. So I write everything down there. So basically I become much more structured, much more organized. I still have a lot of things I need to work on. But it's been a necessity, I'd say.
And something that I've found it might be considered practice, but just sitting down and focusing on work, is that you can get an awful lot done in an hour or two if you're just sitting there completely focused on it, rather than, bouncing all over the place and doing stuff. Like, you can get a surprising amount of work done in an hour or 2 hours if you put your mind to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, get off that phone, turn off the internet if you have to. Like, all of those things can be very important in order to actually achieve something. That's for sure.
So, as either a YouTuber or a musician, as you were kind of growing, were there any mistakes that you made that you could transfer to other people that maybe would help them kind of avoid those pitfalls? Does that make sense? Sorry, I kind of stuttered a bit.
No problem. I'm just thinking here.
Okay.
So if I were to answer that question, I think the most interesting thing was to go back long before my YouTube career. Mm-hmm. I was making a lot of music during around 2000 to 2006, and I was super productive. Like, I made a lot of music. Mm-hmm. But to be honest, I was also quite unhappy during that period of life. And it was not just because of what I was doing musically. It was other things influencing as well. I wasn't very happy where I was in life. But looking back, I can see that if I'd not tried to be something that I wasn't, I'd been much more happy, because I was invested in the wrong sort of music communities and genres and social contexts. So for me, it was very difficult, because ultimately I was trying to do something which it didn't really work for me. I was making music that I wasn't really interested in, in the sense, like, I enjoyed my own music, but I wasn't interested in investing into that kind of social context. For example, for a long while I was doing like the early trance and very, very early EDM stuff, and I'm not a clubber. I don't like clubs. I don't like partying that much. I don't like drinking. I don't like dancing to a DJ. I really don't like those things. I'm totally uninterested.
We should hang out sometime. I'm equally as boring.
I would agree. I would say, I'm quite boring that way. I'm more of a nerd.
Yeah.
And so I was really invested, but for some reason, I think it was because of some early influences. That was the sort of music and the sort of artists I was comparing myself to. And then later on, I started with hip hop because I got to know some really nice, rappers and stuff. And I started developing my skills as a beat maker and developing my skills as a rapper because I can actually rap in Swedish. I wouldn't say that I'm any good, but I would say, I can make something that sounds decent. I would suppose I would say, but the problem was the songs I really wanted to make wasn't for the hip hop or rap scene. They included rap, but they were more folk, more sort of Swedish folk influenced music. Like I have one track on Spotify called Underbara Vinterland. It's like Wonderful Winterland. It's about Sweden with a singer called Marika. And it's one of my probably my best work where I rap and she sings, and it's not hip hop. Like today, maybe you'd be more accepting of that style of music, but when I was making it, it was very different from anything that was considered hip hop. And it was much later that I realized that I'd sort of tried to force myself to fit in a sort of culture and community where I really didn't want to be. Not because there is anything inherently wrong with hip hop or rap, but because I, didn't work. It wasn't something that resonated with me on a fundamental level. So I guess like long story short, I guess like we talked about social context before, and I think just finding the right cultural outlet, if you're a creative, you can do so many things. So for me, it's a lot about finding the right thing to do, the thing that really makes you tick, that really makes you feel engaged. If you're not waking up in the morning and feeling like energized and like, I want to do this, then of course you have off days, but if it's like every single time, then it's like, maybe you're creative and that's nice and all, and maybe you're doing something good, but maybe it's not right for you. So I'd wish that I maybe had thought about this earlier, or maybe even that some of my peers and friends would maybe have had told me like, Bo, you're doing some good stuff, but I feel like you're sort of posting it to the wrong forum. You're sort of going for the wrong type of crowd with this kind of music.
It's a little bit of an aside, but I have to ask, like, rapping in Swedish, is there like a difference, like structurally, in that, like compared to rapping in or English or whatever?
Yeah, so rapping in Swedish and English, I'd say that in English you have a lot more words that rhyme well. It's much easier to rhyme in English, I'd say, than in Swedish in general. Swedish is more, do you say like it's more consonants in like ka, ta, ku, ka, like it's very so I think that might be why. English also has a lot more words, if I'm not mistaken, so there's more synonyms to work with, I think. I could be mistaken here. I'm sort of my rap knowledge is not up to date, but
That's fine. It was just something that popped into my head when you were talking about that, because I've heard like French rapping before and stuff, and I could definitely tell that there's a difference, but I couldn't tell what that difference was. So I'm kind of curious on a different perspective for that. Yeah, well, let's do like one more question and then we can sign off. I know we're running a little behind, but so one of the things that I like to ask people is how they define their own success. Like aside from financial success, where you're like, stable from creating stuff as an artist, but like what would have to happen for you to feel like you really kind of made it as an artist?
The Lambos, the mansion, and the big gold chains, perhaps. I mean, no.
Well, that's what everybody wants as an artist.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Especially on YouTube, you wanna have that Lambo. No, but to me, I started to feel successful when I could reliably create content that people responded to. It might sound a little vague, but what I mean is
No.
responded to in a thoughtful way. So it could be a review, it could be a talking video, all the different kinds of videos. But when I started to make this and see the pattern, okay, people are now engaging with my content in a meaningful way. They are responding. They're providing me with some actual meaningful feedback.
Yeah.
That was when I started to feel successful. So it wasn't a number, or it wasn't, subscribers, or it wasn't the Patreon, or getting support from companies.
Yeah.
But the most important thing is, to me, is the response from the community, and this is also why I feel much more at home currently than I've ever done in any other creative context. Probably because I found an audience, I found a social context where I feel at home, where I feel like, I'm delivering something I believe in, and people are responding to it in a way that works for me. Like it is not like I upload something and they go, "Oh, what the fuck is this?" It's like I upload something, and for the most part, people respond in a reliable way, and this makes me more certain that I'm doing something of value.
Yeah. I mean, Jeremy kind of does that intentionally sometimes with his weird videos, but yeah, I mean, know exactly what you're talking about.
He's definitely more of an artist in that sense, that he also needs, that he wants to maintain a sort of artistic freedom and a creative freedom, to not be, how do you say in English, pigeonholed into doing one thing. I think I do too, in the sense that but for me, it's much more about communication and relationship than it is art, because most of my videos is not about art. It's about communication, in the sense that I'm communicating some kind of information, or trying to pass on some kind of knowledge. So for me, the way I kind of break free from my audience is by doing sometimes bringing up topics that I know people will not always just have, they will not just nod and say, this is, I agree. Sometimes I bring up topics that can be a little bit more complicated. Like in one of my latest videos, I talk about like the fact that you don't have to finish your music. Like you don't. Some people want to, but others don't have that goal. And of course, taking a stance like that against what is sort of a prevailing or dominating notion that it's very important to finish your music. That's one way that I feel like I can maintain a certain kind of creative freedom, I suppose.
Yeah.
And then I'm very happy, when I see the responses. Like some people are like, yeah, this really resonates with me, and some people say, now I think most people just have to have more discipline and actually finish their music. And regardless of the positions people take, I feel like, okay, I've gotten a response. People are engaged. People are actually thinking about something that I've said, and this makes me happy.
Creating that kind of engagement is really important and really satisfying. So I can completely understand what you mean by that creating an environment where people are actually engaged with the ideas that you put forth is most certainly like one really good metric for success, I guess.
I guess it's the teacher in me that wants to reach people. My father said when I was a kid, he said, Bo, you will either become a priest or a teacher, because both can preach. He said. So I guess it sort of came through. in a certain way.
Oh yeah. Okay, well, I think we can wrap this up for now. Thank you so much, Bo, for hanging out and talking with us, or with
no
me
problem,
for an hour. So where can people find you online again, just in case they missed it at the beginning?
Yeah, if they want to hear even more of Bo ramblings, they can go to youtube.com/BoBeatsMusic, or it's twitter.com/BoBeatsMusic, or instagram.com/BoBeats, or facebook.com/BoBeatsMusic. So
a lot of options.
Yeah, a lot of options. But I mostly post to YouTube, and then I often post the same videos to Facebook, say a month later or something.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that makes sense. Like just kind of splitting up your work a little bit, so you're not doing everything at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk today. I really
you, Ben.
appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on, and I hope the children didn't disturb us too much.
Oh no, not at all. I didn't hear a whole lot on my end. Don't worry about it.
That's awesome.
Take care.